Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to our seminar session today on respect being the foundation to intimacy in Bhakti. Om Agyantimandasya Agyananjalosalakaya Chakshun Militam Dana Tasmai Shri Gave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Stapitam Yenamutale Swayam Upakaramayam Danati Swabharatikam Mam Vishnubhada Kashabhasa Bhutali Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayine Nivashisha Shunyavari Pasatara Satarine Vanchukapa Dubasha Kibasini Vevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yeah, so as usual, we have Eldar Prabhu doing our technical backup, and questions you please write in the chat to him, or at the end we can also, lift hands and take the questions like that. And as usual, I like to first present quite a few points, and I usually don't like to stop so much while I'm presenting things. And then at the end, I hope we can have quite a bit of discussion, because this session is only 1.5 hours, not like other sessions we had, which were 2 or 2.5 hours. So like that. Okay, so let us begin. First of all, the title today is Respect, the Foundation to Intimacy in Bhakti. But actually, it's not only the foundation to intimacy in Bhakti, but actually to everything in Bhakti. To our spiritual practice, to actually receiving spiritual knowledge. Respect is the very foundation. We will discover this. So let me first say a few general points about respect, and then we get into all different, more concrete aspects. So first of all, I like to see the quality of respect as a secondary quality to humility. In other words, humility, is a primary quality which we really need in devotional life. And humility manifests in so many secondary qualities. For example, tolerance. A humble person will always be tolerant. A proud person will never be tolerant. Or forgiveness. Humble person can always forgive. Proud person will never forgive. In the same way, also respect. I like to see it as a secondary quality to humility, because a humble person will naturally respect others, and will not demand respect for himself or herself. So we all know Mahaprabhu's, Shikshastikam verse, Trinada Pisunichina. So we have to become more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and be ready to give respect to one and all, and not be eager to receive respect, not demand respect for ourselves. So in that way, we can very nicely understand respect to be a manifestation of humility, actually, because a proud person will not respect anybody. So now one thing is that very often we have a rather superficial and shallow understanding of respect. Very often we think that we can only respect a person who is very exemplary. And as soon as we see some shortcomings in a person, we say, oh, how can I respect this person, right? We often hear this. Actually, by the way, I forgot to mention, please turn on your videos as far as possible. As you know, I'm a personalist. I like to speak to people here and not have all black holes with names on it. So please switch on your video, Yes, thank you. Yeah, so very often we come across this, that devotees, or even maybe we ourselves, we say, oh, this person has so many anatas, so many shortcomings. How can I respect this person, right? Very common statement. So now let us remember, actually Vaishnav mood is that we respect every living entity, not only perfect devotees, even non-devotees, even animals, Krishna's creation. We are meant to actually respect every living entity. And we understand there's the soul there's the super soul, Paramatma, in that living entity. That living entity is dear to Krishna. If he is an aspiring devotee, he's also dear to Prabhupada. He's dear to Guru. So who are we to not respect, even though that person may have some shortcomings, So, and then I was pondering for some time over this, why this happens so easily that we think we cannot respect a person because the person has some shortcomings. So then I started realizing, actually, what is behind this tendency? Behind this is actually envy. Because when we see a person has some shortcomings, then we evaluate who is better, right? We evaluate, oh, I'm better than him. I don't have that shortcoming. So, and therefore, out of envy, we think we have to disrespect this person, and actually indirectly we establish our superiority by disrespecting him, by putting him down. We respect our superior position. And that's what we call envy, actually. So I think this is already an interesting point to start off, that we realize, wow, behind this mentality is actually envy. If I think I cannot respect others just because they have some problem or some shortcoming or something, So that's a very important thing to start off with, that we clearly understand, no, if a person is not exemplary or not perfect, that does not give us a reason to disrespect that person. We may not follow that person in all regards. That's a different topic. We will get to that later. But respect has to be given, because that living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is in his heart. And the person is dear to Krishna, and if he is an aspiring devotee, to Guru and Prabhupada. So, yes, so that's one little point to start off with, that we can reflect and see, and whenever we see this tendency in our heart that, oh, we can't respect this person, then we should show, hey, we should have a look in our heart and realize there's actually envy there. That's why we evaluate and think we are better. So now another thing is, actually a culture of respect forms really the very foundation of spiritual culture. Spiritual culture is based on a culture of respect. We will get to this later more in detail, but just let me hint at it a little bit, because one very important part of spiritual culture and spiritual practice is to receive knowledge, and receiving knowledge is descending. It comes from above. And unless we have respect, we will not be able to receive knowledge coming from above. A very important part of receiving knowledge is inquiry. Tadvidi pranipatina pari prashnena sevaya. So we have to inquire in humility. So if there's no respect, we will not inquire in humility. And then, the seniors can't pass down knowledge, wisdom, life experience, or the standards, the traditions, the values. They're all passed down from generation to generation. And this is actually a real concern of my humble self, that I realize, that respect is declining rapidly in Kali Yuga. And this really forms a threat to our, to Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. We will get to it a little more later. So let us just leave it at that for now, that a culture of respect forms the foundation to spiritual culture. Now, a culture based on sense gratification, that is actually the foundation of such a culture, is a culture of disrespect. Because sense gratification means we use others for our sense enjoyment. In a gross or subtle way, there is some kind of exploitative mood there. We use others, not only human beings, Krishna's creation, nature, Mother Earth. We use things for our sense gratification. We exploit, and we can only do this when there's disrespect, right? It makes sense. So sense gratification and disrespect, they go always hand in hand. They're inseparable. Inseparable. Yes. And I mean, I think today we all realize, how this planet Earth has been ruined. Nature, the oceans, everything, the climate, everything is ruined. It's destroyed. Why? Because human beings have exploited it for their own sense gratification, for their greed. And this is irreparable, actually. The damage is said, which is said is irreparable. So, and very clearly, this is based on disrespect. Yeah, so, and also we can understand it is actually connected to the decline of God consciousness. As religion and God consciousness goes down and decreases, naturally the disrespect is increasing. So it's very closely connected to God consciousness. Like 50, 60 years ago here, even in Germany, people were more God conscious still. Every village has the church in the middle. People were going every Sunday to the church. There was more God consciousness there. After the Second World War, life was pretty simple and humble here in Germany. So people were more God conscious, and there was so much more respect there in human society. And as it's very closely also connected with the standard of life. As the standard of life increases and there's more sense gratification available, as people are more wealthy, the goal of life becomes sense enjoyment, and proportionally the respect and God consciousness goes down, because sense gratification becomes the all-in-all goal in life. So you can really see, even, when there is no pandemic, I do travel a fair bit and I spend a lot of time in poor countries. Ukraine, Bangladesh are always my favorite examples. They're very poor countries. People live very simple and humbly. They don't have the money in the pocket to put sense gratification as their overall goal in life. And there people have more God consciousness there, because in such a lifestyle, it's easier to understand that religiosity and spiritual life is the source of joy. You know, if you don't have the money in the pocket to try and engage in sense gratification, much easier to understand that actually religion gives the joy and satisfaction in life, you know. So, and therefore, in such a culture, there is also more respect there. But then as you go, you can even see it, you know, the more east you go from Germany, the more east we go, the more humble life becomes and the more the respect increases, you know. So east from Germany, you have Poland, and then, you know, Croatia, Slovenia, or these countries. So then further east, Russia, Ukraine. So as you go east, the standard of life goes down and the respect and God consciousness go up. And as you go west from Germany, you know, yeah, well, what's there? France, England in the north. So then we come to America, you know. Yes, well, you know, America is like the headquarters of materialism and yeah, materialistic lifestyle and culture. So, and proportionally, you know, the respect and God consciousness in general society goes down, you know. So you can see it very clearly how this is all connected to the standard of life. And I mean, you know, saying this, we can also mention that, well, let's see how the present situation continues. Maybe this is all Krishna's perfect arrangement here, that life becomes more simple and we get down from our, you know, high arrogance and you know, cloud of sense gratification, and life becomes more simple and humble, and we become more God conscious in society, and also, you know, yeah, the respect will be there again more, you know. So who knows? Maybe this is Krishna's perfect arrangement here to bring Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement forward, you know. And I mean, we can even see it also in the language, you know, like German language. We have two ways of addressing people: the du, the more intimate way, and the Sie, the more formal way. So, I mean, I remember in my childhood, 55 years ago, you know, the standard was that when a person is 16, you address him with a formal and more respectful way, with a Sie, you know, and only really close family members and so on we address in the intimate way. But this has completely changed in human society, completely. The formal, the Sie, people hardly even use anymore, you know, and they immediately switch into the more intimate way of addressing each other, you know. But we will get back to this later. Yeah, actually, no, we could maybe also come to this now, because let us understand why intimacy has to be based on respect. So in a relationship of intimacy, not necessarily only married life, of course also in married life, but any more deeper relationship, even guru-disciple relationship, or amongst, you know, the devotees and the brahmachari ashram, brahmacharini ashram, wherever it may be. So in any deeper and more meaningful relationship, if respect is not there, what happens? Very easily, the over-familiarity sneaks in. And over-familiarity means we treat each other lightly and cheaply, you know, and we take each other for granted. And very easily, we say things then which we would never ever say to others, you know, but, person is only my husband, my wife, and this and that, or guru-disciple relationship. disciple takes the guru, cheaply. He sees him as ordinary person, and he sees mistakes. Oh, he's doing like this. Oh, and so on. So this over-familiarity ruins any relationship. It completely ruins it. And in subtle ways, we tend to use the other person for our own gratification. That's what over-familiarity means. We take each other lightly and cheaply, and in a subtle way, we use each other for some sense gratification, to show off somehow, or to control the other person, or to show, oh, we know better, and so on, And actually, this whole topic of respect, just in case you don't know, there is a whole chapter in this book, Sheltering Relationships, because sheltering relationships, giving shelter, accepting shelter, has to be based on respect. And there's a whole chapter on this topic of respect. And there is I quoted a nice verse there from the Bhagavatam, 3:23:2. Third Canto, 23rd chapter, verse number 2. There it says, these are two important processes in serving the husband or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishrambena means with intimacy, and Gauravena means with great reverence. So interesting, that it says these two aspects should be there in serving the husband or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And actually, these two aspects are not only there in these relationships, husband, wife, and Krishna, but no, actually in any more intimate relationship towards, let's put it that way, towards a senior. There has to be intimacy there, Vishrambena, but also Gauravena, great reverence. So that very nicely makes this point that actually intimacy has to be based on Gauravena, on reverence, on respect. Otherwise, very easily, we take each other lightly and cheaply, and then it spoils the whole relationship, And this is another very common misunderstanding today, that very easily we think we misunderstand respect to be formality and impersonal. We almost consider it to be outdated to have respect in a relationship. And why does this come about? So it's actually what people try to do today is that they try to artificially create intimacy in a cheap way by discarding the respect, by throwing the respect out of the window. They try to create intimacy, right? But what they get is actually over-familiarity, People basically don't want to pay the price for true intimacy. The price for true intimacy is service and humility and respect. So people don't want to pay that price, and they want to create a cheap way of intimacy by throwing out the respect, throwing it out of the window, no need, and and then they show off, oh, we are so buddy, and, easygoing, casual, But that is over-familiarity. That's not intimacy, That's a very big misunderstanding, that we mistake respect to be outdated and old-fashioned and formal and impersonal. But no, it is absolutely required for any form of intimacy. And of course, especially also in married life, it's interesting. Like here in Germany, usually people say the more you know, they address their guru with a more informal way. You know, they don't use the respect for the Z to address the guru, you know. But actually, you know, like people in Russia, Ukraine, they always use the formal way of addressing, you know. Yeah, Russia, Ukraine, you also have the two forms of addressing each other. Or in Bengali, you even have three forms. The tui, tumi, and what's the other one? I forgot. I haven't been to Bangladesh for a while. Can't remember. Anyway, they have three forms, you know, one respectful one more friendship one, and then a very, very close and friendship, confidential one, you know. So they have even three ways, you know. Most languages have two. Some, like English, they only have the you know. So like in Russia, Ukraine, people would never ever use that personal way of addressing each other towards guru. Never. My God. You know, when I told them that here in Germany we address guru like this, you know, they're shocked, you know. Yes. But also here in Germany, there is a few devotees who do say the respectful way to their guru or to other senior preachers or devotees or something, you know. And there's also some gurus who have actually expressed to their disciple that they quite like it and they even prefer that more respectful way of addressing, you know. Because, yeah, without this respect, we cannot really also receive knowledge, you know. This is another misunderstanding very commonly today in modern society, also in schools or, you know, amongst teachers and pupils. This whole idea of, yeah, we are all equal and actually we can reach the children better when we go down on their level and we're all friends and equals with them, you know. Or parents also do this sometimes with their children, that they say to the children, oh, no need for you to call me mommy and daddy or something, but the children just call the parents by their first name, or it's all friendship and cool and easygoing and equal. But no, this is a whole, you know, misunderstanding, you know. So this respect towards teachers, towards parents, towards gurus, this is the foundation of being able to receive something from them, because teaching knowledge, you know, flows down from superior to junior. So, and this exchange of passing down knowledge, it has to be based on respect. Otherwise, we get something else, you know. Yes. So, and I mean, just a few, let's have a look at a few little examples, you know, which illustrate how yeah, the respect is diminishing in today's society, you know, like, for example, that's why we have Vaishnav etiquette. That Vaishnav etiquette is meant to help us, to teach us, to cultivate this respectful mood, to understand we are in a very tiny, insignificant, humble position, and we offer respect to one and all. So, for example, a very simple rule of Vaishnav etiquette is actually that one should get up from one's seat when a senior person enters, you know? Yes. So, I mean, the elder generation, we learned this at school, right? When the teacher used to come in the classroom, everybody was standing up. You know, this was 50 years ago when I went to school, you know. But now I don't think this is going on anymore in the schools, you know. Contrary, people, you know, the pupils have their feet on their desk there. That's how they greet their teachers, you know. They don't rise and say good morning or something. Nah, this is all considered outdated and old-fashioned, you know. But this is actually the Vaishnava etiquette. So even let's imagine, you know, we have Kadambakana Swami here at the moment in Simachalam in Germany. So let us imagine we are sitting in the garden and Marge walks past us. Actually, the proper etiquette would be to stand up, to rise from your seat. You know, you don't just sit there when the senior person walks past. That's actually the etiquette, you know. Or when, you know, when you sit in the office and Marge walks in, you're meant to stand up, you know. Yes, this is the basic etiquette of showing respect. But this is all considered old-fashioned and strange, you know, and weird or something, you know. Yes, yes. Or even, you know, Vaishnava etiquette rule, paying obeisances when we haven't seen a devotee for a while. You know, we are meant to go down on our knees. So, but even these things, yeah, they're kind of often not so practiced anymore. Sometimes we just say, oh, nice to see you, Prabhu, Vanchakalpas, you know. Just Vanchakalpas, and that's enough. We don't go down. We don't say the full mantra. Just, oh, Vanchakalpas, Haribol, you know. Yes. Or sometimes also we can find this very commonly in the Western world. And whenever I hear this, oh my God, you know, my heart is in pain. That often when we talk about Maharajas, we just skip the title of Swami, you know, and we just say, oh, did you hear Kadambakana is coming? You know, and we just, yeah, I mean, it sounds so horrible, but I come across this quite a lot, and I usually immediately add, oh, you mean Kadambakana Swami? Oh, yes, yes. You know, I immediately add it, you know, and I've heard people talking like that about their guru, you know, just skipping the Swami or Maharaj. I mean, this is so uncultured and so disrespectful, you know. And again, we can look at it. What is behind this? Why do people do this? So we actually, when we do this, we want to show off what a close connection we have. We are such a close associate and a buddy of him. Oh yeah, it's just Kadambakana. We can, you know, pat each other's backs here, and such an easygoing relationship. It's a subtle way of showing off. And again, we use that person for our gratification, that we make a show what a cool and easygoing relationship we have with this person, you know. So that's always behind this over-familiarity, that in a subtle way, we try and use that person for our gratification, you know. Even when we, you know, when we try and bring attention to ourselves by laughing loudly or behaving in a loose and frivolous and inappropriate way, or even when we don't dress in a chaste way, somehow showing off and so on. So again, actually the root problem is disrespect, because we use in a subtle way, we use this other person for our gratification to show off, you know. So if we actually had true respect for people around us, we would never want to use them in such a way, you know. Yes, yes. We would not want to use them, you know, just to bring attention to ourselves and show off and so on, you know. So actually all these more subtle aspects of respect, I really only learned in my years of serving in Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is really, as I'm always explaining, it's such a special country. It is, you know, the place where our Vaishnava culture comes from. and it is a very poor country. So in Bangladesh, people have so deeply ingrained in their hearts this respect, so deeply, you know. And at the same time, their relationships are so affectionate and so intimate and so personal. So that's actually where I really learned to understand that intimacy and affection has to be based on respect. In Bangladesh, I have learned this, you know. And like, for example, let us understand how this is, for example, manifesting in daily life. So in Bangladesh, you will not hear that people call each other just by name. They always add Prabhu, Madaji. They don't just say the name, you know? Yes. That is already over-familiar. It's disrespectful if we just say the name, you know? That's amongst the men as well as amongst the women, and definitely between the genders, you know? I mean, it would be so gross and uncultured, you know, in Vaishnav understanding if a woman calls a man just, "Hi, Krishna," or whatever his name is, you know, Advaita Singha, you know. Ooh, no, it's Advaita Singha Prabhu, it's Krishna Prabhu, you know. Ooh, it's not just the name, you know. But even the brahmacharis, the bhaktas amongst themselves, they never call each other by name. It's Bhakta John Prabhu. That's how they address each other, you know, or how they announce, you know, somebody, let's say he distributed, you know, 10 books or something. So it's Bhakta John Prabhu distributed 10 books, Ki Jai, you know. So that's how, yeah, in such a respectful way, you know. And for the women, then Mother or Madaji, you know, or Bhakti in Andrea Madaji, like that, you know. Yeah, very respectful, you know. So of course, for the modern ears, this would sound impersonal, you know. It's really, I mean, as I always say, you know, 269 in Bhagavad Gita, what's day to the materialist is night to the introspective sage. What's day to the spiritualist is completely ignorance at night to the materialist. So a materialist thinks it's a sign of friendship to call the person by name. And you see this in, you know, in the outside world, you know, it's often even a tool between, you know, let's say a businessman and his customer, that he always says the name of his customer. "Oh, hello, Mr. John. Yes, John. Yes, no, John. Oh, how are you today, John?" And always, you know, you mention the name, and every second sentence, people call the name. And they want to try and create this mood of friendship in a very cheap way, you know? So that's considered to be friendship with a materialistic ears, you know, but with a spiritual vision, this would be inappropriate, overfamiliar, gross, uncultured, you know. That's how these cultures are so different, you know. And I remember a couple of years ago when I went to America, it took me a while to get used to the way people sometimes there talk about others, you know, especially when young devotees refer to Prabhupada disciples as "you guys." Some of you I see here cracking up laughing. Yeah, I mean, I once heard this, and I won't say where in which temple, but you know that bhaktas refer to Prabhupada disciple, "Oh yeah, you guys, you know, what are you guys doing?" You know, or whatever. I thought, my God, you know, how can a bhakta address a Prabhupada disciple as "you guys," you know? It took me a while to get used to this. But then I was sitting on the plane, and the stewardess there was making some announcement. And when we were landing somewhere in America, she was saying, yes, and we wish you guys a nice day. And I thought, okay, so this must be really the way of, expressing friendship here, calling people you guys, Yes, but in spiritual terms, it's a very uncultured and gross way of referring, especially to seniors, you don't call them you guys, But I remember in this regard, I remember another funny story. Some years ago, when I was spending more time in Bangladesh, I actually made some attempt to learn Bengali. Devotees were saying to me, you have to learn Bengali, otherwise you can't do anything in this country. So I had a Bengali teacher coming twice a week to the temple. And he had been living in America for a few years. So he was all an Americanized Bangladeshi, And he was trying to show off, how cool he is and how Americanized he is. So he was addressing me every second sentence with Devaki. Oh, hello, Devaki. He was not a devotee. I think maybe he even was a Muslim or something. I can't quite remember. So he was not an ISKCON devotee as such. So, and always, oh, hello, Devaki. Yes, good, Devaki. Oh, goodbye, Devaki. Always Devaki, Devaki, Devaki. And it got so on my nerves, I just couldn't tolerate it anymore, because in Bangladesh, this is so uncultured to address a woman, from a man's side, a woman just with a name. I mean, it's so inappropriate, So then at some stage I said to him, actually, the Bengali culture is so sweet and so respectful and so deep. And there, we don't call each other just by name. For me, this is, feels very unusual. And he was, of course, he was a little embarrassed, but at the same time, he was also impressed that I was, teaching him his own culture there, So and then he stopped it, But yeah, so this is how different these two cultures are, Also, another nice thing I learned in Bangladesh is, how also children are given so much respect, Yes. There's the vision, the spiritual vision there that, soul, super soul is there. This little fellow is a Vaishnava. It's just a question of time until he's grown up. So very often they even address the children with Mataji, with Prabhu, just to also encourage them to, come up and behave nicely and so on. And for example, if a kid gets run over in a kirtan or something, the people apologize to that child, they put their hand on his head or shoulder and make the gesture of apologizing, it's a whole thing, And also even objects, respect to objects. Like, for example, it would be very disrespectful to touch anything with your foot, which is not meant to be touched with your foot. Yes, So, well, what is meant to be touched with our feet, so our shoes, the ground or something, but to move something aside with our foot, this is disrespectful, I remember distinctly I once made this blunder in Bangladesh. I was in an office, with different devotees there. We came together for a meeting. And I moved my computer bag aside with my foot. And oh, people were giving me these really shocked and stern looks. Nobody was saying anything. They were too cultured to say anything, you know. But they really did. I mean, their eyes were popping out of their heads, you know. How can she touch the computer bag with her foot, you know? So there is so much respect that if you touch by mistake your computer bag with your foot, you would apologize to the computer bag. Yes, you touch the computer bag with your hands, put your hands to the forehead, and oh, I'm sorry, you know? Yes, that's really the proper behavior, actually. And if you really, you know, reflect, if you just move something like a computer bag with your foot aside, if you really reflect, there is some arrogance behind it, you know. You're too lazy to get down and pick it up with your hands, so you just move it with your foot out of this way. There is some pride, some arrogance there, some disrespect, you know. But the respect teaches us to see everything as Krishna's energy, everything to be used in Krishna's service. So we should not touch things, even objects, in a disrespectful and casual way with our feet. This is especially important for instruments, for musical instruments. So often I see that devotees, when they play the harmonium, they touch the harmonium with the foot. Oh, this is, oh my God, this is really uncultured and very gross, especially musical instruments. They're an expansion of Lord Balaram, my God, you know. So you don't touch these things with your feet, you know. But in the Western world, these subtle aspects of, you know, of respect, they are almost unknown, actually, you know. Yes. Yeah, so we have a lot of things to learn, you know. So basically we can say, yes, Vaishnav culture, very subtle. It teaches us to become more humble than a blade of grass, you know. Whereas the modern ways actually cultivate a gross and rough mentality of pride and arrogance and, you know, easygoing, over familiarity, you know. So that's really in a nutshell how we can put it, you know. So now a few last words to the topic of receiving spiritual knowledge, you know, as I mentioned in the beginning. It is descending. It comes from senior to junior, you know, the elders, respect to the elders is such an important part of spiritual life, that there has to be respect there, and the elders stand for wisdom, for life experience, for self-realization. So we inquire from them, we serve them in a humble way, and then they can pass on their knowledge to us and their life experience and wisdom. They pass on the standards, the traditions, the values, you know, the etiquettes, and. So this exchange cannot take place if there is not a culture of respect, you know? Yes. And this is one thing which, yeah, sometimes worries me a bit. And I hear this also sometimes from senior devotees, from Prabhupada disciples, especially from America, that they sometimes, I've received letters from Prabhupada disciples who I've never even met. I don't know them, you know, but they have voiced their you know, observations that because there's a general decline in respect. So then what happens is that the youth does not show that respect to the seniors. They don't want to hear from them. They don't want to accept their instructions, their guidance. And they have this mood. So now we young people, we bring in the latest way of how we do things. And now it's our turn, you know, and then very easily all kinds of Kali Yuga elements come in. And the elders see this, but they cannot even correct, because there's a lack of respect coming from the juniors. They don't want to hear. They're not ready to accept. You know, they don't even want to inquire from them. And then what can the elders do? They can only stand by and say nothing. And sometimes they're afraid to say something because, or maybe the person will be discouraged from practicing Krishna consciousness. We don't want to be too strict with them, you know. So, and then gradually, the whole process of devotional service can really water down from generation to generation, because the elders cannot pass on the values and standards and the instructions, you know. So this is a very alarming thing, you know, which, yeah, it forms a threat to Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement, you know. So that's why it is so important that actually respect is taught at very young age. This is the duty of the parents. They have to teach the child respect from the earliest age onwards, something which is unfortunately completely unknown in the Western world. Yes, but I have experienced this in Bangladesh. Already when the child is 1 year of age, you know, the parents say, oh, the sadhu, the senior devotee, you have to put your head on the ground, dandavats, you know, and in a gentle way, they push the head down to the ground, here, pay your obeisances. Child is only 1 year old, cannot even understand anything. But already there, the parents, you know, gradually introduce this, you know, or you have to touch the feet, you know, sadhu, get his blessings, you know. Yeah, this is really still taught in Bangladesh, like anything. Already India, not so much anymore. In some families, in the traditional families, yes. But in more modern families, it's already lost, you know. So now, of course, for the parents to be able to teach respect, they have to set the example. They have to also pay obeisances and so on, you know. Otherwise, how can the parents teach, you know? But this is the important thing, you know, that the parents have to teach this at the youngest age, right from beginning. If they come with this idea only when the children are teenagers, oh, well, then they miss the boat, you know, then the children are in a rebellious mood. They don't want to hear about this anymore. And very easily, if the child doesn't learn this at young age, then it may be hard for the child to learn it at all, you know. So that's why this respect has to be taught as early as possible, you know, and adjusted to the age of the child. But there has to be respect. There has to be respect, you know. Yes. In Ukraine, I've also experienced this, you know, when I'm there, that when I come to a family's house or something, there's children there, then immediately the parents say, so pay your obeisances, let's go down, let's receive the senior devotee and so on, you know. And this is for the ultimate benefit of the child, you know. If the child grows up with this respectful mood, you know, then when the child is grown up, it is so much easier for the child to actually accept, you know, spiritual life, because that respect is already, you know, cultivated. And the respect is the foundation of spiritual life, you know. But if the parents miss this, then, yeah, then the person doesn't have such a good start in his spiritual life, you know, because that foundation of respect was not given, you know. So very important. And also children, you know, towards the father. I mean, we don't want to get into the children's topic here too much, but, you know, father, mother, they play different roles. And father, the child should have that respect towards father. You know, he is meant to bring the more strict and disciplined mood in, and more awe and reverence should be there towards the father. Mother is, you know, hugging and, you know, mother is mother. But father, there should be more awe and reverence there. Yes. It's also one of these things that these days often the fathers, they don't want to play the role of awe and reverence and strictness and discipline. And then children have two mothers. And then they miss out on learning this discipline and respect, So mother, father, they both play their roles, and they're both important, Yes. And I mean, even, yes, towards children also, the respect towards children manifests also that, for example, only within the family relationships, we fondle a child and, squeeze them in the cheeks there and hug and kiss and so on, but outside the family relationships, actually the only bona fide touch towards a child is on the head, blessings. Yes, no other touch, Yes, that's the culture. And that also protects the child, of course, from child abuse, And often we see, when people come and, oh, you're so cute, actually the kids hate it, oh, leave me alone, enough, no need, because the child actually can feel that the grown-up person, in a subtle way, they use the child for their emotional gratification, and they actually feel uncomfortable, because there's a certain disrespect there. We use that little kid for our emotional needs there, because we like to fondle somebody or something, But actually it's disrespectful towards the child, Yes, yes. So good to understand, So now one last thing I want to read to you, some very nice quotes in regards to respecting elders. And this actually gave me some insights. Why so many devotees have very difficult relationships with their parents, especially when they're not devotees. The root causes that we Vaishnavas or aspiring Vaishnavas, we are not following the etiquette of respecting our seniors, and parents, even if they're not devotees, they're still our seniors, and we are meant to respect them. And so often we think ourselves to be superior because we are devotees, and we actually act in a disrespectful way towards our parents. I have to admit also that for many years, I didn't understand this deeply. And I had quite a tense relationship at times with my mother. And little did I understand how much I was contributing to this. Yes, because I did not follow the Vaishnava etiquette of respecting her as senior. Because I was thinking, well, I'm a devotee, I'm a preacher, so I have to instruct her and, this and that. And she didn't like it, And yeah, I was just not, because especially in the Western world, in Germany, we are not taught this anymore, how to actually respect parents, I mean, my mother was telling me, I think it was even, in her childhood, that the child would address the parents with "Your Grace" in German language. Eure Gnade. Yes, that was the way to address the parents. Very respectfully, So, I mean, of course, this is completely unimaginable today, but it's not so long ago. It's only some 60, 80. Well, my mother just turned 91. So, all right, it's 90 years ago, but it's not that long, Yeah, so in more aristocratic families, You know, the children were addressing their parents like that, with your grace. Yeah. And the you was the former one, you know, not the close one, you know. So the Sie, euer Gnade. So, but in any case, I want to read to you this nice quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur from the book Chaitanya Shikshamrita. And I find this so good. So the introductory words are as follows. There are 3 types of service to elders: protection of parents, protection of teachers, and protection of other elders. One must follow the instructions of parents and serve them as much as is possible. A person should serve those who have protected him as a helpless child. So this is one reason why we have to respect our parents. Doesn't matter how fallen and whatever they may be, but they have tried their best, we can assume, according to their capabilities, to protect us when we were a helpless child. So that in itself is a reason why we have to respect them, even if they are eating meat and doing all kinds of nonsense. As we said before, you know, if a person has shortcomings, not a reason to not respect, you know. But there already we fail. We often think, oh, my parents, they're kamis, they're eating meat and drinking alcohol. How can I respect them? You know, no, one must, you know, respect them because they have protected us as a helpless child. He should also service those who have given knowledge, especially those who have given spiritual knowledge and mantra. Those are considered superior. Now you may laugh. Those are considered superior who are bigger in body. So even that is a criteria for superiority. How big is the body? So if a person has a bigger body, well, you better watch out. He is superior, you know. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. So he is considered superior who is bigger in body, greater in age, or more experienced in knowledge. One must respect and serve them all. Now it comes, the main point, which I really like. One cannot follow incorrect orders of superiors, you know. So superior, respecting the parents doesn't mean we follow any order they give. No, it doesn't mean that, because even there we are also often not clear. We think respecting means we do everything what they say. No, we respect because soul is there, super soul is there. They're somehow dear to Krishna, even though they're in ignorance and they may be fallen and sinful and whatever not, but still they're dear to Krishna. They're part and parcel of Krishna, and they have served us as a helpless child. So these are all the reasons why we respect them. But respecting them does not mean we follow incorrect orders, you know. So one cannot follow incorrect orders of a superior, but one should not show hostility towards him, using disrespectful or harsh words. One should put a stop to their improper behavior or instructions by using sweet words, humility, and gentle reasoning at the proper time. I mean, I find this genius, how Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you know, captured this, how we should act with seniors, let's say parents, you know, who are giving some improper, you know, instructions. So we should try and put a stop to their improper behavior by using sweet words, not harsh and arrogant words and argumentative words like we usually do it. We argue with the parents. This is completely inappropriate. Or answering back to them, knowing it all better, even if they talk nonsense. It's not our position as a junior to correct them. Yes. It's against Vaishnava etiquette to try and correct a person who is senior, even if the person is not a devotee, or to answer back, to know better, completely inappropriate. So we should try and put a stop to their improper behavior instructions by using sweet words, humility, not arrogance, and gentle reasoning at the proper time, not at the improper time, and not rough and harsh and argumentative reasoning, but gentle reason at the proper time. Very nice. And if we apply this instruction, for example, with our parents, I'm doing this now consciously with my mother, and immediately relationship becomes so much nicer, Yes, because the relationship is according to the etiquette, even though she may not be senior in knowledge, but she is mother, and mother is always senior because they are superiors. So we cannot, we cannot disregard the etiquette and then be surprised that the relationship is difficult, Yes. So now I'm always consciously practicing on my mother to take the humble position and let go of my false ego and let her be right, even if she's wrong. Just let her be right. It's okay. Not arguing back and having to correct her or something, And very often when mothers make some, unreasonable suggestion, oh, why don't you finally get a job or this or that? So how do we answer? We just say, yeah, Mom, it's all right. I'll think about it. I know what you mean. And yeah, I will take it into consideration, and then just change the topic, and not get into a whole argumentative thing. No, this, that. No, inappropriate, against Vaishnava etiquette. With a senior, we don't try and convince them of our, position and that we are right and we know better. This is all inappropriate, against the etiquette, Yes. Yes, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says, one should be careful to please superiors with polite and gracious conduct. Polite, gracious. That's how we are meant to, deal with seniors, even if they're not devotees and so on. There has to be respect there, Definitely. Yeah, so it's really like that. If we follow the Vaishnava etiquette, then we may have so much sweeter relationships with our parents, Yes. Yeah, I'm convinced this is the problem. Why so many devotees have very bad relationships with their parents? Because we are not following the etiquette. And we behave disrespectfully, thinking ourselves to be superior just because we are devotees and they are not, or something, Okay, let me see. This was basically the main thing, what I wanted to share with you all. So let me see if we have some question. I will have a cup of water while that.
Hare Krishna, we have some questions, but first, very small question, very quick one. What page is it in Chaitanya Shikshamrita?
I don't know. I didn't write down the page. But there's different sections there. I've got the book in my room, actually. But I didn't get it directly from my book, but I heard it somewhere. So you would have to research. There's all different sections there about, humility and etiquette and this and that. So somewhere you will find it there. What else?
2 questions from Mataji Kirti. Let me read them. What actually means respect? How do we feel internally about other person when we have to respect them? It's Mataji Kirti. I will ask for video from her.
Okay.
Oh,
well, I mean, as we were saying, respect is we can see it as secondary quality or manifestation of humility. So respect has to be based on humility. And I heard once a nice definition what it means to be humble. Just look in your heart and be honest. You know, then you will become humble. Just reflect, look in your heart. How much dirt is there? How many anatas are there? So, and if you're looking in your heart and you're honest, then you can't help but becoming humble, you know? So, yeah, I mean, respect, it is based on spiritual vision, actually, you know, that we see beyond the externals and the body, but we have that vision of, you know, understanding there is a spirit soul in this body, and Paramatma is also there. And the person is part and parcel of Krishna's creation. He's dear, or she's dear to Krishna. So it requires spiritual vision, ultimately, you know, to have true, deep respect. And as long as we don't have the spiritual vision yet, that's why we need so much the Vaishnava etiquette, who teaches us how to behave as if we had the spiritual vision. You know, we can't just say, all right, let's wait until we get the spiritual vision and then we will be humble and respectful. No, we have to already try and transform our patterns of behaviors. And we do that by accepting the Vaishnava etiquette, how to behave with seniors, equals, juniors, and what to do, what not to do. You know, so the Vaishnava etiquette is like the crutches that helps us to move forward and cultivate the humble patterns of behaviors and give up these proud and arrogant patterns of behaviors, you know, which the culture around us is completely promoting, you know, and we may not even be aware of it, as I was saying, you know, the way to address each other as you guys and all this. We might think it's all completely normal and cool and sign of friendship or something. So that's the thing, you know, we kind of are a little desensitized, you know, we are not so receptive and perceptive anymore towards these subtleties, and we don't even notice, you know, how rough and gross sometimes our behavior may be, you know. So that's why we need the Vaishnava etiquette and culture. That's our only saving grace, you know, to transform these patterns of behaviors. And then true respect basically is coming from that spiritual vision, you know. I mean, also Prabhupada always gave this comparison with like a temple or community. He compared it to a hospital, you know, and all the sick people are there in the hospital. So, and we all have the disease in some way, and we all have different symptoms, you know. One person has this anata, one person that anata, and so on. So we all sick, you know, and like in the hospital, just because other people are sick there and maybe vomiting on the corridor there or passing stool there on the floor or something, whatever it may be, it doesn't mean you disrespect that person. No, you know, when we go in that comparison with disease, you know, just because another person is sick and vomiting on the floor, you don't disrespect the person. there's some compassion there. Or, you know, a person is sick, how can I maybe help that person, you know? So in the same way also within a community, you know, just when people have some shortcomings, some you know, not so nice behavior or something, rather than disrespecting them, we should have that mood of compassion. You know, how can I help that person? Or if we are not strong enough to help that person, then maybe we have to have a bit of social distancing, not to catch the disease. You know, then we just keep a respectful distance, you know, like that. Okay, any other question?
Yes, another question from Kirti Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji, you mentioned that even person who is not up to standards, still we respect them, but we do not follow them. What if they offend or commit great aparat to devotees or Guru or Krishna? It is very difficult to respect.
Still, we have to respect them as conditioned soul, part and parcel of Krishna, you know? But as I'm saying, respecting doesn't mean we follow them, and it very much depends on our position and our relationship with that person. You know, our way of respecting that person may also manifest that we correct that person, you know, or we chastise that person. I mean, see, even as a preacher, you cannot even preach if you don't have respect towards the person who you preach to, you know, even though the person may be a complete newcomer and some kind of nonsense or something, you know, but the respect is there. This person, somehow Krishna sent this person to our community, you know, so how can I serve this person? So, that, you know, as a preacher, we cannot actually, why should we spend our time and energy if we would not respect the people in our audience, you know? Of course, we can just pull off a show here and showing off or something. But no, if we genuinely have, you know, a desire to uplift people and give them some knowledge, this has to be based on respect. So there's respect comes from both sides, from the junior to the senior, but also from the senior to the junior, you know. Yeah, so respect has to be there. But then how we deal in that certain situation when a person, you know, behaves wrongly, that has to be seen individually, you know. But even if we chastise a person, this also is a sign of love and care and respect, you know, because we care about that person and therefore we correct them and chastise them. You know? So it's a sign of respect, nevertheless. Yeah. I actually have two devotees here who are sitting in, and one of them had his hand up for a question. You want to ask something?
Ja, ich habe die Frage, ich würde es auf Deutsch lesen.
Yes.
Und wie das ist, halt einfach mit dem heiligen Namen in Verbindung mit Respekt, weil oftmals chanten wir nicht, also habe ich das Gefühl, so in einer Haltung, wo wir einfach nur durchchanten, aber nicht wirklich diese Wertschätzung für Krishna bekommen, so wie man da, ja, vielleicht kannst du sagen.
Yes, his question is respect towards the holy name. And very often we just chant, you know, and blabber something around there, but we don't have that appreciation and that respect for the holy name. Yeah, I mean, these things I discuss in depth in the holy name retreats. As we were saying in the beginning, this over-familiarity sneaks in, you know, and this is also there in our relationship with the holy name. Any activity we do very regularly, every day, or any relationship where we see each other every day, like husband and wife, very easily this over-familiarity enters. And also in the chanting, you know, because every day we chant our japa, and then we take it lightly and cheaply, and we lose respect and we forget what we are doing. And then, yeah, our chanting will be offensive. So same principle is even there also in all relationships, and also in relationships to activities, even deity worship. If a pujari is every morning on the altar, every morning doing puja, then very easily also this over-familiarity can sneak in, and we take it lightly and cheaply. We become over-familiar with the deity, and it just becomes a mechanical routine thing. And we forget what we are doing, that we are actually serving the Lord here. And, it's also based on disrespect. And then we just do it some quick thing there, and we become inattentive and negligent and so on. Yeah. Any other question?
Yes. We have a question from Mohana Sini Radhadasi. Sorry. How to teach...
Hare Krishna, young man.
Давай я спрошу, а потом продолжишь, хорошо? How to teach kids to stay respectful at the beginning and during their puberty?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, if we start in the beginning and during their puberty to bring up this whole respect topic, then we may not get very far, because puberty, teenage means there's the rebellious stage, and it is also with purpose, because this parent-child bond, there has to be detachment from both sides, so the child can establish him or herself in the world as own personality. So that's why, these teenage years are difficult, So, well, also especially when the children become teenager, the parents also really have to cultivate respect towards that personality and understand their time of disciplining and instructing and chastising is over. We discussed this in the children's course. When the child is 15, 16, then the parent has to become friends. They cannot discipline and correct and instruct anymore. The child will not accept it. It will only do the opposite, and it will only ruin the relationship. So that the parents have to allow the child to establish him or herself in life, and the parents have to respect the desires and the interests of the child. They cannot just try and clone the child according to themselves or something. They have to allow the child to, establish himself, and there has to be respectful dealings. I remember very distinctly here in Germany, one mother, she once was telling me that she had such a difficult relationship with her son, and the son was already a little older than teenage. He was 18, 19, something like that, He was not in puberty anymore. So, and then I spoke to her over Skype, and I could, and the son was there in the background, and the way she talked, I could immediately understand that the mother, did not treat her son respectfully, And I was saying to her, you have to treat your son like a grown-up person, like you would treat anybody else from your friends or somebody who lives with you now, You cannot just always, correct them and harass them and nag and, no, teenage children don't want to have that kind of treatment anymore. We have to treat the teenagers like a grown-up person, really making certain deals with them and clear your duties, what they have, as if you live with a friend together, And that's how we have to treat the child when they're 16, 17, really like a friend, And then other authority figures have to come in. And they have to maybe give further discipline, senior devotees and teachers. And so the main way of the parents to then help the child further is by connecting the child with other authority figures, yeah, who can further discipline and train. But the parents, their time is over, you know. Yes. So, and you will see if the parent, you know, if the mother actually treats the child respectfully, then the child will also respond in a respectful way. And this mother here in Germany, you know, I explained to her that, and then a week later she connected again with me and she said, oh, wow, this really works, you know, since I have changed my way of dealing with my son. He also is very different and he's so much more helpful, and we are actually treating each other like friends with respect, you know. As we say, respect is the foundation to intimacy and bhakti. So even in the, you know, mother, son or daughter relationship, when they're grown up, there has to be respect there, and then there will be intimacy there. But without respect, there will be only over familiarity, arguing, and we will treat our grown-up children like we would never ever treat any other person. But he's just my son, she's just my daughter, you know. Then we throw all kinds of things at the person's head, which we would never say to any other person, you know. So that should be in our mind, that we treat the grown-up children like we treat any other friend, with respect, you know. Anything else? Padma Sundari Mataji, you were lifting your hand before. No?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mataji, for your seminars. I wanted to share a few things which I remembered in my life. Like once, one Mataji, she was angry with her child. It was a small child. And she said, oh, what would I do with you if my guru isn't around here? You know, her guru is around. So this is what we often do when we are in front of our gurus or some seniors. Then we try and behave nicely. And when they are gone, then we become familiar again with our close members. So that's my meditation. I'm still learning about respect a lot. And my meditation is that I always think, how would Krishna want me to behave? You know. Then once it happened that also my guru was around when I was a little bit harsh with my husband, and he said to me, Guru said to me, would you behave like this with me? You know, and then then I always have this in my mind after that.
Yeah, I mean, this is quite a nice meditation, you know, that we behave like this as if Guru or Prabhupada would see us. You know, it's actually a good meditation. You know, it's a fact. It's a fact. Because as soon as they are present, then, you know, we tighten up and we act properly. We don't want to look embarrassing there, you know. And that brings in the respect. Yeah, good idea.
Also, one more thing, my husband and I were talking once which teachers we remember the most, which teachers we liked, and it was always the teachers who were respectful towards their students.
Just see, yeah.
This brought up respect over them.
Yes, exactly, yes. So the respect really has to come from both sides, you know. The child or the student or the pupil has to be respectful towards the teacher, but also the teacher has to treat the pupils or the child or the disciples also with respect, definitely. And even a child feels, you know, whether there is some respect there or whether we just let out our anger on them and we kind of use them in some subtle ways for our gratification or something, you know. So yeah, it's a subtle thing, but it's a question of consciousness. And it basically simply means we have to have that spiritual vision that, you know, this is in regards to our child, for example, that yes, this is a special soul which Krishna puts in my care, and this is my service to try and help this living entity to come closer to Krishna, you know, and that we do this, you know, with all respect and care and desire to really uplift the person and not just putting them down and, you know, whatever, you know. Yes. Yes, this can happen easily, you know, that as a parent we somehow let our frustration out on the child, you know, especially when we are stressed, when the mothers are working and they come all tired home and irritated and had some frustration at work, and then the poor children cop it all, you know, and yeah. And this is also, again, disrespectful, you know. Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, there is another question. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you very much. This is Ananda Shakti Devidasi, name showing as TJW. What do you recommend if in a particular situation we start to notice we are losing respect for the person we are interacting with?
What do we do if we notice we lose respect? Well, just to try and once again go back to the respectful mood, you know, to correct ourselves, to realize, oh, you know, I'm actually not respectful, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, there's not that much more we can do. Or if we grossly, you know, treat a person in a disrespectful way, or well, we can also apologize, you know. That, of course, also, you know. But there should be some regret, some lamentation there in our heart, you know, that we did not treat
Ее спросили, а что если
in a respectful way. There has to be some lamentation there. Otherwise, how will we improve ourselves if we don't regret our inappropriate behavior? Hey, Elder Prabhu, we can hear you. You know, you better mute yourself there. Yes. So there has to be some regret, some lamentation there, you know, if we notice that we behave in a disrespectful way, you know. And then that lamentation will help us to correct ourselves and guard against that tendency, you know. Here we have one more hand up. Come on here, Madhuji. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, pranams. Thank you so much for this amazing class. I actually have two questions, so I'll just ask one, and if you feel there's time, I could ask the other.
Okay.
I want to preface both of my questions with the realization that as a Westerner, I see how easy it is for me to view this etiquette as being informal, too formal and impersonal, like you mentioned. And so there's a lot for me to think about there. So this question actually has two parts. How to balance respect with warm affection, like you mentioned in Bangladesh, they do that. It feels like a very fine line between the extreme of too formal and over familiarity. And expanding from that, how do we repair a relationship with a Vaishnava that has been harmed, maybe even destroyed by over familiarity? Is it even possible?
Okay. What was again the first part of your question? I forgot already. Hang on, can you unmute her? Yes, say it again.
Apologies. So the first part of that question is how to balance respect with warm affection. because it feels like a fine line between the extreme of too formal and too familiar. So, for example, in a small community, we want to have affection amongst ourselves, and also to protect, we also don't want to become too familiar. And I've experienced that it's such a fine line in between, and that tends to familiarity.
I understand what you mean. Well, basically, we can say it's up to the senior devotee to, to control the relationship. So it's up to the more senior, person to make sure, especially when we deal with a junior person, not to allow them to come too close, because usually young devotees, they have, of course, this tendency more to become over-familiar because they're younger in devotional life. They may not have such deep humility. The respect may not have developed yet, and so on. So the younger devotee is, the more the tendency is there to become over-familiar. So that's why it is the senior person's duty to guard the younger person from this, and protect the younger person from this tendency of becoming over-familiar. So, as a senior person, we don't do young devotees a favor by allowing them to come too close, because then very easily they become over-familiar and use somehow the senior person in their interest or whatever, So, but at the same time, then, as a senior person still, it's not sure how to describe it, but it doesn't contradict each other, to still keep a distance to the person and keep the person in their place, so to speak, but at the same time also be affectionate and caring. And of course, definitely we show our affection in uplifting others, that is the greatest affection we give, by actually trying to encourage the person in their spiritual development, So, and giving some guidance and having some interest in their life and all this, that is actually in many ways the greatest, the highest level of affection, to actually help people in their ultimate goal of on their way back to Krishna, So it's a fine line which requires experience, because often I see this also in senior devotees. I often come across this topic in in discussing the topic of mentorship, which I'm discussing in this book here, that we need a coach, a mentor. And there are often this problem I can see also in devotees who try to serve as mentors, that they often make the same mistake and think, which we discussed, how teachers sometimes think they can affect the children better when they put themselves on their level, not higher above, but on their level. And same misunderstanding. Very often I come across this in mentors, that mentors think they can connect better with young devotees if they put themselves on their level and they're all buddy and chummy with each other there, But no, misunderstanding. Because sooner or later the relationship will be spoiled. Over familiarity will come in. The respect will fly out the window. And then there will be some arguments and harsh words and offenses and this and that, Yeah. So it's up to the senior person to, to manage the relationship, so to speak, and make sure some distance is there, but at the same time also show affection and interest, in the other person, and give them attention and so on.
Mataji, would you mind to elaborate a little bit on what you mean by keep distance? Because I think a lot of us struggle to understand what this actually means. For some people, it can feel very cold. So what is the correct way to maintain distance?
I have to think about it. What's the correct way to maintain distance? Yes, I mean, as an example, as a traveling preacher, we are often in the situation where where it's our duty to accept personal service, you know? And in many ways, it's actually uncomfortable because, yeah, you have to accept service. Often it's better to do things yourself and not accept service from others, apart from the fact that often they don't do it the way you would like to have it anyway, and so on, you know, and you're just better off quickly doing it yourself. So, but, you know, if you allow people to serve you personally, then you allow them to come closer, you know. And then sometimes when people, you know, are not mature enough in their spiritual development, then often this over-familiarity sneaks in, you know. I mean, that's why Guru always keeps the disciple at a distance, you know. He doesn't get too chummy and close, and, you know, he doesn't offer his friendship on that level or something, because then very easily a disciple thinks Guru to be an ordinary person, and he becomes over-familiar, you know. So, yeah, I mean, it's a very subtle thing, you know, of this person in a more senior position. It's a matter of consciousness that we don't put ourselves on this equal level or something, but we, in a humble way, we accept the senior position so that we can serve the junior, you know. There's also some misunderstanding that sometimes people don't want to be regarded as senior, you know. They mistake this to be some pride or something, you know. No, I'm not senior, we are equals and this and that, you know. But no, out of humility, we accept the senior position so that we can serve that person and uplift him. You know, that's the spiritual understanding, you know. Yes, so that we do accept the senior position, but out of humility, in a humble mood, not arrogant mood, oh, I'm senior, but no, just so I can serve, you know. Yes.
May I ask part two of that question?
Absolutely.
You've already answered the separate question just now, so I don't even need to ask it. But just part two of this question is, how do we repair a relationship with a Vaishnava that has been harmed by over-familiarity, even destroyed by over-familiarity, or seemingly destroyed?
This may be relevant to some of our attendants here. How do we repair? Well, it's good to make the diagnose, you know, and maybe even discuss with this person what actually happened here, you know, that some over-familiarity snuck in. Of course, again, it depends on our relationship with that person, you know, if that person is maybe not so much junior than us, but still some over-familiarity came in, then, you know, it may not be our position to tell that to that person. So it just depends on the actual situation. But I mean, my mood is always, as far as possible, to discuss things openly. That always clears the atmosphere and you know, leads to deeper understanding of the situation, you know. And then maybe there may have to be some, you know, some time of more distance, you know, so that we don't, that we as a senior person, we don't make this mistake of allowing people to come too close and become over familiar. but nevertheless, you know, still showing interest in that person's, you know, Krishna consciousness and their life, not just, oh, I'm offended and I'm not going to talk to the person anymore and all this, you know, this just creates barriers and blockages, and we carry all this burden with us. And, you know, no, we understand what actually took place, and then we move on. You know, we don't keep grudges and all this, but we just move on, and we just try and as you said, we rebuild the relationship, you know, on a more respectful foundation, you know, and that may mean, so yeah, it will not be so buddy and close and chummy anymore, but it will be more with respect, you know. So, and if that other person is a little serious, then they will also appreciate that and understand that, you know. But if the person only wants to enjoy being close buddy there or something with us, you know, because there's a subtle enjoyment there. And when a person becomes over familiar, you know, we somehow use that other person for our gratification in some way. So if the person is only interested in that subtle gratification, then the person may not be interested anymore in a relationship, you know. But if there's a little bit of sincerity there, then then, you know, we will learn to relate to each other on a different platform, you know. Yes. Okay, do we have anything else? Govindanandan Prabhu, so nice that I see you here. Thank you for joining us. Unmute him. Can you unmute him, Govindanandan Prabhu? Yes.
Thank you so much for the lecture and the kind words.
How are you, Prabhu? How is life there in Zagreb?
We are struggling with this virus situation.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's going better.
You have temple programs?
Yes, we have regular temple programs, which are sometimes impeded by restrictions of how many people can attend.
Yes.
And we have also smaller programs, but not so regular as before.
Okay. You have any Maharajas there? Chandramouli Swami, Prahlada Maharaj?
But Chandramouli Maharaj was at some points here, but
yeah.
because of the restrictions of coming, we contact mostly through Zoom. Like yesterday, we were in contact with Prahlada Maharaj through Zoom.
Okay.
And we agreed that we will again have a contact on next Friday. It's like, so
okay.
we're trying to compensate in some way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have some hopes, some little hopes that maybe in summer the restrictions will be a little more easygoing, and maybe I can come and visit, you know, Croatia, Slovenia.
It would be our pleasure. It would be our pleasure.
I'm simply hoping and praying. I mean, last year I managed to travel a little bit. I went to Czech Republic 2 times, and to Vienna, to Austria, and to Denmark, and to Estonia. But that was about it. You know, I didn't make it any further.
Yes.
But let's see, you know, let's keep in touch. And if things are a little opening up, then yeah, I mean, you know, these nearby countries, this is where I would like to travel a little bit, you know.
Wonderful. I'm in contact with the notices that you are sending for the lectures and everything, and hopefully there will be a schedule also.
Yes, yeah, I mean, as soon as the restrictions are more open, then, you know, maybe I can actually come, you know, not just through Zoom, but
it would be our pleasure.
I always do prefer the personal thing, you know, even though Zoom is better than nothing and one can reach out a few people and also reach people who usually are further away and I don't reach so easily, you know. Many more people usually watch the YouTube video later, you know. So, and that is encouraging and is also a good way of reaching people, but still I do always prefer the personal thing, you know, so. Let's see. Let's hope sooner or later it will be possible again.
Thank you.
Okay. So actually next Saturday I have something for next Saturday I have a North American Vaishnavi thing and they didn't want that I'm inviting anybody else there. But next week Sunday I'm doing a 2-session program on one day for the South African devotees on the topic of sheltering relationships being the foundation of devotee care. You know, in Croatia we had that and so on. So, and it will be from 10 to 12 and 4 to 6 German time. They wanted it like that, 2 sessions on one day on the Sunday, and it will not be on this link, but on the South African link. I am just in the process of getting a poster made and I will send it out to devotees, you know. So if anybody wants to join that, you're more than welcome, you know. But I'm not sure how practical this is, 2 sessions in one day. You know, I was a little doubtful, but they said, no, we will get the people and so on. So let's see, you know. But that's my plan then. And then we are heading up to Nishinga Chaturdashi. So then I probably will not give anything for a couple of weeks and just be ready here with helping, preparing things and so on, you know. And then let's see, maybe in June, beginning of June, I will offer again something. And yes, I mean, usually, you know, I also announce it on the Facebook page of the Institute for Spiritual Culture Facebook page. There, I'm always posting the posters also, you know. Okay, everybody. So thank you very much for joining us again. And I wish you a nice weekend and hope to see you soon again. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari.
Oh,
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.